Hello and welcome to Nothing But the Truth. Prime Minister Modi's handling of the Chinese president's visit has confirmed an impression that people have formed over the last 4 months that the Prime Minister is adept at foreign policy and it's become his forte. But does the Congress party agree? That's one of the key issues I shall explore today with former Foreign Minister Salman Khurshid. Mr. Khurshid, let's start with Prime Minister Modi's handling of foreign policy. Whether you look at his visits to Bhutan, Nepal and Brazil, or his summit meetings with the Japanese Prime Minister and the Chinese President, or the way he turned his swearing-in into a SAARC summit, there's been widespread praise of Prime Minister Modi. As a former Foreign Minister, are you surprised that foreign policy seems to have become his forte?
Well, I wish it had. And I think every Prime Minister of our country tends to, and probably rightly so, focus on foreign policy because that projects India's image across the world and gives the Prime Minister a particular standing. But I am sorry, I think it's too early to pass judgment one way or the other, and I think negative judgments are probably uncalled for at this stage, but I wouldn't give high marks right away.
You wouldn't give high marks to his handling of foreign policy?
Yes, I'm afraid I can't. I'll tell you, and I can tell you why.
Go ahead, tell me why.
Very simply. Now, if you take our handling of Pakistan, I think it's very clear that his impression was that he would just say something and Pakistan would do it. That's not how diplomacy works. Pakistan is a difficult country, and Pakistan has given us a lot of trouble. And to expect that the Pakistan will just click its heels and say, aye, sir, is not something that you should have expected. Should have looked at Pakistan with far greater care and far greater sense of planning than they did.
You're suggesting that the decision to call off Foreign Secretary level talks because the Pakistan High Commissioner had done something that Pakistanis have been doing for 20 years and more, talk to Hurriyat, was a mistake?
I'm not saying anything except to say that I am amazed that they didn't think it would work out in this manner. Should they not have anticipated? Should they not have considered that this is the likely move that Pakistan will make? Now, we can't be caught off guard and then pretend that we are being very brave.
What was it that was responsible for what you consider the mistake? Carelessness, i.e. an inability to think through carefully? Or hubris? Or, in fact, impetuosity?
I think it's like going to a takeaway joint and think that if you just put the cash there, you get what you want. It doesn't happen like that. In diplomacy is a far more complicated thing. Diplomacy is a far more strenuous thing. And just to think that I can win an election in India, therefore I can win everybody across the globe, not so easy.
You're really saying that the Prime Minister failed to understand the nature of the diplomacy required with Pakistan?
I'm afraid, yes. No, not just Pakistan. There are other places as well. But as I said, it'd be unfair to judge conclusively too soon. Still early on. He still has to go to the UN. We still need to know what happens with Europe. We still need to know what happens with the rest of the world. So let's wait for past final judgment.
All right. I've heard why you're critical of the Prime Minister with regard specifically to Pakistan. I'll come to other issues where perhaps you're critical as well in a moment's time. Let me at this point, however, put to you why many people are impressed with the Prime Minister, why they think he's been adept, why they think he's actually made foreign policy his forte. There are 3 reasons why people think the Prime Minister has brought a fresh breath of air. First of all, he's brought in fresh energy, dynamism and imagination, which for many people is enhanced by his powerful speech making. They see this as a substantive change, or at least as a difference in terms of style and presentation. How do you see it?
Well, I mean, people have different styles. I mean, you don't cut your structure to match everyone. Everyone has their own style, and he has his own style. If people like it, good for them. I am concerned about not style, but about substance, the content. I think that's far more challenging.
Let's come to content then, because actually in terms of content, the Prime Minister has got firm commitments of economic intervention in terms of investments from China and Japan, totaling $55 billion over 5 years. The country, in the shape and form of the lay public and in the shape and form of the media, is hugely impressed. Let me ask you, is Congress impressed by those commitments?
No. Congress started a very ambitious program with and that's the UPA government, with China. China was built here as to be bringing 100 billion. And what do they bring? 20. Point is not...
You're getting carried away by innocuous remarks made by diplomats speaking off the record. Surely that's not the right way to judge the outcome.
Well, then what's the right way to judge the outcome? He should have said, I expected 5, they've given 20. We are not being told the truth. And more than that, what's important, of course China will want to come and invest in this country. Who will not want to invest in India?
Well, they didn't do it in the 10 years while you were in government.
That's not true.
You have no such commitment from the Chinese when you were in office.
That is not
and not
true.
From the Japanese either.
That is not true. That is not true. We have enormous commitments to the Chinese and the Japanese.
Not made public at any rate. You never made them public.
I am sorry. You're just being given something that's worked over 10 years. You think in 3 months, any country sits there and says, take this money from us?
You're claiming that the commitments made by the Japanese and the Chinese are actually the result of efforts you made.
I am saying yes. And
you're taking credit for it.
Of course, I'm taking credit for the entire foreign policy of our country. And my only worry is that whatever we have developed over a period of 10 years shouldn't be dismantled by an over-aspiring, over-aspirant Prime Minister.
Mr. Khurshid, let me put it like this. Not only are you saying to me that you're not impressed by the commitment of $55 billion from China and Japan over 5 years, that itself is surprising to hear, but you've gone one step further.
You're surprised because you've forgotten what happened in the last 10 years.
That's what I'm coming to.
Yeah.
I clearly remember the 10 years when your government was in power. You were foreign minister for 18 months or maybe 2 years during that period.
Yeah.
There was no such commitment, not just by China and Japan. There was no commitment by any country to invest in India in the same way.
I will send you a brief. Please look at the investments that have come. We are not agents. We are not agents for collecting money. India is a country that must have a much greater profile than just seeking money. And please, how much market access? Just listen to me. How much market access has China given to us?
Can I answer that for you? Can I answer that for you? For the last 10 years, Chinese investment in this country was 400 million. 400 million.
Yes.
It's increased 40-fold with this commitment of 20 billion. That's the order and magnitude of difference.
For when?
Over 5 years.
Over the next 5 years.
Yes.
Not today.
400 million was over 10 years.
I know, but 10 years, and where did we start with? Now you're going to tell me you fought a war with China, and here's somebody shaking hands with China for 3 minutes. Now, that's not the way you talk about diplomacy. Yes, we fought a war with China in '62, but from '62 to when Mr. Rajiv Gandhi finally shook hands with China, we have changed the whole perspective. Let me just tell you one thing. Today, does China support us on our foreign policy vis-a-vis Security Council? Does China support us on the SCO?
We seem to have got a much better assurance from China on the Security Council this time around than we got earlier.
We've got no assurance at all.
You don't believe what the papers have reported?
I don't believe anything the papers report. I believe only what I hear officially. Are we being supported by China even to become full members of the SCO, the regional cooperation
The Chinese president publicly said that he supports India's full membership of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. He said it publicly at the press meet. At the press meet.
I've been there.
He said it. He said it when Mr. Modi was sitting beside him at the press meet.
I've been there for 2 years. For 2 years. For 2 years, we've been asking.
Clearly, China has taken a new position, which they announced on Thursday when he was here.
I will stand up and applaud when we become members. Okay? I'm not here for an event management exercise and clap my hands because there's an event.
You call it event management, and that's clever use of language to dismiss the success. But let me come back to this.
There is no success.
Let me come back to this critical issue of $55 billion investment, which has impressed the country. It's clearly not impressed you. United Nations figures show that the sum total of FDI coming into India from 1990 till now is 227 billion. That's over a 25-year period. The Chinese and the Japanese have committed to put in 5 years flat just over a quarter of that, 55 billion. That's a huge increase.
And return for what? Return for what? Return for blocking of Brahmaputra? Return for not giving visas? And please understand, our Minister of State...
Who says it's in return for that? Who says it's in return for that? Only you.
Did you see the Minister of State from Arunachal Pradesh anywhere near the Chinese president? Did he disappear from the channels?
Was it important for him to be there?
No, it's not important. It's not important to have visas given to people from Arunachal Pradesh.
He's the Minister of State for Home Affairs. This is a foreign affairs visit.
I know, but he is also the face. Should this not have been the moment to show how proud we are of people who are
40-odd members of the cabinet. They weren't all around the Chinese president. Are you complaining about their absence as well?
They didn't have to.
Why should Rijiju be so special?
Why should Arunachal be so special? I've never talked about you with the Chinese, but I've talked about...
But the visa issue was raised publicly by Mr. Modi. The border issue was raised publicly by Mr. Modi.
I'm sorry, not raising, getting a reply. And please tell me, while all this was being raised and talked about, who was doing what on the line of control, line of action control?
I want to bring up that as well, because that's the third reason why people believe that Mr. Modi's handling of foreign policy is significantly different to yours. They say that Mr. Modi is stronger and more assertive in pushing India's interests. We saw it last month vis-a-vis Pakistan. We've seen it this week vis-a-vis China. When it comes to your government, they turn around and say your government was much more soft-spoken, sometimes even docile, sometimes even hesitant to stand up. Mr. Modi did it publicly with the Chinese president sitting beside him, and he did it assertively, and the country was impressed.
And everybody went back? They went back from our territory? Or they just stood there throughout the 3 days? They just stood there and said, we will not go back? And you saying that this is something I should be impressed with?
Can I remind you of how you responded as foreign minister when the Chinese last year incurred into Indian territory at Depsang, just days before the Chinese prime minister came? You called it acne.
What should I
You
have called
dismissed it with
Wait a
flippant
minute.
language.
Wait a minute.
You got criticized for it.
What should I have called it?
A serious thing that
What
was
should I have called
something
it?
serious
Okay,
that was
good.
worrying.
Please, something serious that should be worrying. Is this the word that the BJP has used today?
Hang on a moment.
Have they used
Mr.
it
Modi raised it in public with the Chinese president sitting
your
beside
face
him.
is acne. I could have said to their face, your face is acne, but that's not the way you speak
You don't think
diplomacy.
Mr. Modi's language sitting in front of the Chinese president was significantly different to the word acne?
What was it? I'm asking you. So the problem is that if you shut your eyes and ears and say, oh, he said something wonderful, please tell me what he said. And I will tell you it's a better word than acne.
I'll tell you what he said.
What did he say?
What the Indian Prime Minister said was that these sort of border incursions are a barrier to better relationships, that they must be stopped. He said, in fact, quite clearly that we cannot have progress in terms of trade, we cannot have progress in terms of other contacts if this continues. And he said it several times to the Chinese president, as a result of which the Chinese responded by saying very clearly that they would take steps to sort out the border, and they hope to do it quickly.
Listen, I really, if you believe and you lap all this up, there is nothing more that I can say. These are words that have been said to the Chinese for 20 years. 20 years. But today, because they're being said by Mr. Modi, you think they're being said for the first time.
So can I put this to you? Whether we're talking about the investments of $55 billion, whether we're talking about Mr. Modi being more assertive in terms of India's interests, whether we're talking about the fresh energy and dynamism he's brought into foreign policy, on all three fronts, you disagree.
Absolutely.
You're going against the grain of public opinion.
You don't know the grain of public opinion. I know something about the grain of public opinion. I've said this to you before, and I'm saying it to you again. We are not an alien presence in this country. So just because the Prime Minister of the country now wants quick success stories to be given out to the press, I will accept something that is not in the interest of our country. Not acceptable. Not acceptable, plain and simple.
All right, let's come to two other aspects of foreign policy. First, I want to talk about something that critics point out may be a weakness in Mr. Modi's handling. And I'm going to ask whether you agree with it or not. They say Mr. Modi is so singularly and solely in command of foreign policy that he's made his foreign minister redundant. She may have the title, but Mrs. Farage has very little to do. Do you see that as a weakness? Do you see that as a strength? Or is it something you don't want to comment on at all?
No, I don't think it's fair for me to comment on this, because I don't know what their relationship is. I don't know what the foreign minister feeds into the prime minister, what preparation she makes, but I would expect that he would take whatever input she provides very seriously.
But you're not critical of the fact that the public impression is he controls the portfolio, she's standing on the side doing nothing but smile.
Sorry, there's a general criticism in the country that he's doing this with all ministers. So it's not for me, it's for them to decide what kind of government they want.
Let me bring up a second issue which many regard as a potential weakness in Mr. Modi's foreign policy. They say Mr. Modi is so anxious, so enthusiastic to secure substantial Chinese investment in the economy to revive the economy, that he hasn't left himself space and room to respond to China's role in countries like Bhutan, Bangladesh, countries like Sri Lanka and the Maldives, countries like Nepal and Pakistan. Does that worry you?
Of course, he's not. You didn't even mention it. That is a major
Nor
concern.
did you, by the way, until I brought it up.
I'm sorry. You weren't sitting in my meetings. What I have said, I know, and that's the reason why I find I find it surprising that the new Prime Minister is unable to talk about these things.
So these are areas where the Prime Minister has squeezed out the room for him to talk, because he's so keen on investment by China, that China's political involvement in the region around us, you think he hasn't got the area or the maneuver to talk?
The Prime Minister has a very bad record of investment promises that he made in Gujarat. I hope that the promises that he's making in this country as Prime Minister are going to be a little better than what he did in Gujarat.
Let's look forward. At the end of this month, the Prime Minister visits Washington. There's no secret that, in fact, the relationship between the two countries has gone through a fairly bad patch. Do you believe Mr. Modi, as Mr. Modi is convinced he can turn the page and start a new chapter?
Well, let's see. Let's see. There are some very important issues, and they shouldn't just shake hands and say we'll have a strategic partnership. That's not enough. We need to know again about market access. We need to know again about visas. We need to know again about our software industry. We need to know about issues that were irritants between us and the US and how they're going to be handled, including how our diplomats have been handled.
All of those are important issues on which we definitely need to know before we come to a definitive judgment. But are you not impressed by the fact that President Obama has broken with the normal American convention and invited our Prime Minister to Washington for a state visit, which will now last over 2 days, during the UN session, when normally he doesn't like having visitors to Washington?
Well, I know, but this is the first time Mr. Modi is going there, and we know why this is the first time he's going there. And that's good for him that he's going there.
And good for India.
Of course, an Indian Prime Minister goes, it's got to be good for India, and I hope that our expectation that it will be good for India remains intact even during the visit and after the visit.
In an interview that he's just given to CNN and to the CNN anchor Fareed Zakaria, he said that he is confident, that's the precise word he's used, that in fact India and America can establish what he calls a strategic alliance. Does Congress approve of the idea of a strategic alliance with America, or do you have reservations?
I think that if my leadership hasn't commented on this, but very clearly we don't believe in alliances, we believe in partnerships. And an alliance with any country takes us away from the standard Indian position that we deal with countries on merit, that we deal with countries as partners, and that we do not make alliances. We've never made alliances. Now, what he means by an alliance, he will have to tell the country.
Except that he very clearly used the word alliance. He responded to a question using the word alliance.
He picks up words that don't make sense to ordinary people. Moratorium on violence. It doesn't make sense. Alliance.
Come back to alliance.
Doesn't make sense.
You're suggesting one of two things. Either that the Prime Minister has committed himself to an alliance and he's made a mistake, or he doesn't know the difference between alliance and partnership and used the wrong word.
Frankly, I've just said what we believe in. What he believes in, I'm not going to.
And you don't like the idea of an alliance with America?
Not a question of like an idea or not like an idea. We can't be. We've never been in an alliance. We've never sent our forces to fight with American forces.
Policy could change. There's no reason why it can't.
Of course, then policy changes.
Would you be against a change?
You should first tell the world, and you should first tell the country that I am making a change. And then if the country supports your change, please go ahead. But don't just quietly on a television channel say we've changed our policy.
In other words, A, he's doing it quietly without telling the country, and you have objections about that. And B, you have objections also about the fact that an alliance is something you're not happy with. Partnership, yes. Alliance, no.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
No. I've just said to you, my leadership hasn't reflected on this yet, but I am telling you what my reaction is. So don't just say that this is like Mr. Modi made an announcement, I'm making an announcement about our policy, but it's certainly something that takes us away from our consistent position over the years.
Salman, Khurshid, let's take a break at that point. When I come back, I want to turn to you and in the brief time available talk about the recent by-election results. We'll be back in a moment's time. Don't go away. Welcome back to Nothing But the Truth and an interview with the former Foreign Minister, Salman Khurshid. Mr. Khurshid, let's come to the recent by-election results. There is a telling joke doing the rounds. When Mr. Modi doesn't campaign for the BJP does badly. When Rahul Gandhi doesn't campaign for Congress, Congress does very well. Now, I know a lot of truth is often spoken in jest, but can you accept this is truth?
Well, I think it's puerile. I think it's obviously coming from people who don't understand what elections are about and what by-elections are about. I think it's really very silly.
But isn't it true that Rahul Gandhi didn't campaign in the by-elections? And is it true that you've taken yourself by surprise by how well your party's done?
Well, let me just say this to you, that top leaders don't generally in our party and other parties as well go and campaign in by-elections. That's one thing. Be that as it may, are we surprised? Well, we of course pleasantly surprised. We are surprised because you had written us off. And then 3 months is a very short time for somebody to bounce back. And
you bounced back without any effort by Rahul Gandhi. He didn't speak, he didn't participate, he didn't visit. He was absent, and his absence has done you the best benefit.
No, I'm sorry. I campaigned only in one part of UP, and that was Noida, and we've lost it. So you should write me off as somebody who's a loser. This is not the way you're going to calculate election results.
Let me quote to you what Digvijay Singh, one of the most senior general secretaries in your party, said to the Sunday Express, and he was comparing Rahul Gandhi at this point with Narendra Modi. He says, the unfortunate part is that a 63-year-old leader attracts the youth, while a 44-year-old leader could not attract them. And once again, I put it to you, Digvijay is totally right. Rahul has not attracted the youth.
No, our whole party, this elections in 2014, couldn't draw on the vote that we thought was legitimately our vote. We couldn't draw.
No one denies it. But your leader at the top was a young man who was expected to have a special appeal to the young, and he didn't, and that's the point I'm making.
You've assumed that a young person can only appeal to the young and he can't appeal
Unfortunately,
to the old.
He didn't appeal to the old or to the middle-aged. He didn't appeal to anyone.
But I've already said, we as a party did not get the legitimate vote that we hoped we would get. But don't forget that we did get 20% of the vote of this country.
You know, it's not just Digvijay Singh who's expressing reservations about Rahul Gandhi. Other senior party leaders, although admittedly not in public but in private, make no secret of the fact that they don't think Rahul Gandhi has the leadership qualities needed of a Congress vice president. More importantly, they don't think he has the capacity to inspire the country or to convince the country he has the answers to its problems.
The reality of politics is that when you're rising, everything you do is good. And when you're declining, everything you do is bad. This has happened with everybody. Look at the BJP. What's happened to Mr. Advani? What's happened to Mr. Advani and a series of other senior leaders that the BJP had?
There's a critical difference between LK Advani and Rahul Gandhi. He's 87 at the end of his career, waiting retirement. Rahul is 43 at the beginning of his career, hoping one day to become Prime Minister.
Doesn't matter. But Mr. Advani, when he was still hoping to be Prime Minister, had brought his party down to 2 seats in Parliament. But at least 44 is a lot more than 2 seats.
He also took his party from 2 seats to power and did it twice.
So if you've just said Mr. Rahul Gandhi is in his early 40s,
give him time, he'll do it.
Why are you writing off for the next 20 years?
I'll tell you why I'm writing him off, and I'm going to go back to quoting Digvijay Singh again, because this is what Digvijay Singh said. The people of the country want to know what Rahul Gandhi stands for. And then he adds, Rahul should be more visible and should be heard more often. And you know what he's saying? He's saying Rahul is a vacuum and a cipher, and vacuum and ciphers don't become natural leaders.
I'm not quite sure about these words that you're using. He said, and I think a lot of people in the Congress believe this, but of course we need to convince Mr. Rahul Gandhi that there is a greater desire for people to see him reach out, take positions.
Isn't it strange that you need to convince your party leader that he needs to be more visible, that he needs to be seen and heard?
Because he's got a style.
He should have thought this himself.
Sometimes you have to tell people, can you please keep a lower profile? You're going very high, you're reaching out too much. Can you just be a little more discreet? In politics, you have to find the right moment.
Do you know what you're saying? You know what you're saying? You're saying sometimes you have to tell your leader, please stand up and lead. Clearly, if you have to tell him to stand up and lead, he's not a leader.
You do this all the time. I'm sorry. You do it all the time.
You never did it to Indira Gandhi. You never did it to Jawaharlal Nehru. You never did it to Rajiv Gandhi.
Were you there?
Nor were you.
Were you there?
Nor were you.
I was there. I worked at her OSD. I know what people used to say to her and say, ma'am, please fight. We are here. Please fight.
No one told her to sit on the back of an elephant and walk into Belchi shining a torch on her face at night. She did it of her own intuition. That is an intuition Rahul Gandhi doesn't have. That instinct is missing.
How do you know that he doesn't have? How do you know that? See,
I'll tell you why.
I'll tell you how I know. Closely as some of us
I'll tell you how I know.
Yeah.
No aspiring future Prime Minister of a country is so shy that he sits on the backbenches and keeps quiet, shuns the media and never makes a statement on the big public issues of the day. That's why the media and the country is written off Rahul Gandhi.
No, because this media is taken to quick quick statements being made, a lot of noise being made. That's not the way serious politics is done. Now, if he has a style that's different from the style you've got accustomed to, if he has a style that's different from the style of rabble-rousers, why can't you accept that he is different? And why can't we say that we want to package you a different kind of leader?
Absolutely. I accept Rahul is different. The problem is this, the difference is so serious, he's never going to make it to leadership.
How do you know? How do you know? Look, are we not concerned about our future? Would
Your
we be
party
blind?
in private is deeply concerned.
I don't know. I don't know. Do you know what the BJP in private is concerned about? Have you ever heard them? Have you ever talked about that? Have you said to me that the BJP in private is extremely concerned about how this...
My last question to you, I'm hearing your defense of Rahul Gandhi, but I want to put this to you. You know, despite the by-election results which has surprised you, that you stand to
pleasantly surprised us.
Pleasantly surprised you. That you stand to lose Maharashtra and Haryana next month, and after that Jammu and Kashmir and Jharkhand. And as Congress's fortunes plummet, concern about Rahul Gandhi will escalate. The situation confronting Rahul is going to get worse, not better. Well, he's going to look less capable and he's going to look less admirable.
Don't worry. He's got a lot of people there behind him. He has a lot of...
pushing him forward because he can't go forward himself.
Standing there solidly behind him. So
that he doesn't fall backwards and retreat.
Let him take the decisions.
You're a wall to prevent him from running away.
Let him take the decisions. Let's not force through you any decisions on him. We have confidence. We believe in him. We have faith in him. So please let us play it out. That's all.
Salman, Khurshid, a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.